Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WDW Fan Zone Show. I am Stuart Sternberg, and I'm joined by John Maloney and Darlene Hurricane Nagy. And on this episode, we're going to talk about the effect that Epic Universe, which is a new Universal theme park that's opening in 2025, what effect it may possibly have on Walt Disney World. But before we get into that, Darlene, do you have any news items you'd like to discuss with anybody here? Or not anybody, tell our listeners about, viewers about. If you don't this week, that's fine.
I'm just going to let you know that we are in spring break right now, and there are numerous people at the parks. Pack your patience for the overflow of guests in the parks and waiting in lines. Definitely check your park apps and stuff, and also pack an umbrella and a good rain jacket if you're coming down this week. We are having torrential downpours quite a bit. So the weather is a little bit on the crazy side down here right now with a lot of rain.
Darlene, just to let you know, there's no rain in the forecast till a week from this Thursday.
Well, that would be good because it rained here today really, really bad.
But that was in the forecast.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the other night, so.
Yeah, well. All right, anyway. I did a short little news show this weekend, and I do have a few things to add to it, and I'll get to that quickly so we can get into our topic. Disney World's mask policy is changing again. Starting today, masks are optional for fully vaccinated guests on the Disney Skyliner. In addition, masks are optional for fully vaccinated guests using the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser transport to and from Disney's Hollywood studios. However, masks are still required for all guests 2 and older using buses and the monorail. All right, this coming December 10th at Disney's Animal Kingdom and on December 11th at Disney's Hollywood Studios, you can celebrate Dapper Dan holiday event, or a Dapper Dan holiday event, I should say, by dressing up in your finest and fanciest outfits. Early registration for the 2022 Wine and Dine Half Marathon began on Tuesday, March 15th for Gold and Platinum Club Run Disney members. Registration for everyone else opens on March 22nd at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Located in the Grand Floridian, Victoria and Albert's restaurant is expected to open later this year. So that's good news for all Victoria and Albert fans. Next month, the 94th Annual Academy, annual, I can't talk right today. Next month, the 94th, here I go again, Academy Awards. There will be a live performance of Disney's Encanto, We Don't Talk About Bruno. It's the wildly popular song from the movie, which coincidentally was not submitted for an Academy Award. And that is all the news I have since I did the broadcast earlier this week. So we can get into the topic. But actually, before we get into the topic, let me remind people about how they can plan the best and greatest vacation of their life by going with simply the best travel planner there is, was, and ever will be. And that is, of course, Mouse Fan Travel. Mouse Fan Travel can help you whether you want to go to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise, and Adventure by Disney, or do a non-Disney vacation. They've got experts in every part and everything you can think of about travel. So no matter what it is or where you want to go, contact Mouse Fan Travel. They work with your budget. They'll ask you the kind of group you're going with, whether it's family, friends, a solo trip. They can do it all for you. They've got experts in everything. Didn't I mention that already? They are absolutely the best. You're not going to find customer service better than them anywhere. Great deals going on right now at www.mousefantravel.com. That is www.mousefantravel.com. All right, so Epic Universe, which looks like it's going to be an epic theme park for thrill seekers. There's rumored to be another Harry Potter land coming there as well. Now we know Disney is doing the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction. Then there's the Tron attraction. We know now that the Mary Poppins and the Avengers attractions are not finished, that they were just paused, which, we were led to believe earlier that they were out of sight, out of mind, done. Nope. They might be coming sooner than later. We don't know when, but it's a possibility. So, do you think, or how do you think, Epic Universe is going to affect Disney's plans going forward? I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but once that park opens,
Well, the thing that I think the big question is, and it's part of the purpose of the discussion tonight, is
Mhm.
what do we expect the impact to be to Walt Disney World?
Right?
And that's what they're going to care about. So
Yep.
Epic Universe opens, it's got a lot of attractions. It's going to be targeted at a certain set of guests is what I'm is the way it
Mhm.
sounds,
Yep.
because of the particular intellectual properties they're going to use. Sounds like it's going to be, a more adventurous park, so maybe some of the younger guests. So I think Disney is going to look at it and say, how how many days do we think that we'll lose from our guests to for guests that are at Universal now? So maybe some guests left Disney and went over to Universal for 2
Mhm.
days or 3 days. Well, what happens if they go and take another day away
Right.
from Disney?
And I think that's what Universal is counting. So let's
Right.
say somebody comes down here to spend 7 days. We'll just use 7 days because it's a full week. And they plan on spending 4 days at Disney World and 3 days at Universal. Well, now, or let's say they were planning on 5 days at Disney World and two at Universal. Now, in order to see what they want to see what they want to see
Oh,
in the new theme park at Universal, they're going to have to spend at least a half a day, if not an extra day of their time there. I would say an extra day. And that is going to take some guests away because right now, guys, correct me if you don't agree with me. I think Disney, as much as they want to keep people on property, are not doing things that they did in the past to secure those guests to make sure that they stay on property.
yeah. I mean, in some ways, I wonder if Disney sees that as a good thing
They might,
if they can get more dollars out of the guests that they have.
right? Like if they have a guest that's staying on property for 7 days, but three of them are spent at Universal, do they really care if they're not going to the parks and taking up space that will be occupied by someone else for sure?
Right. Yeah, so I think that's gonna be an interesting.
Mhm.
I'm sure Disney has these discussions, but, what is the right balance?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe losing or maybe having the attendance in the park go down and they're able to offset that with additional revenue. Maybe that's a sweet spot for them,
yeah.
so that
You know what? They
guests
might
are
be
more.
thrilled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll just cost the guests that are in the park more money.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Well, doesn't it always? And you know what? We complain. Well, I don't want to say complain. We have discussed the high prices of Walt Disney World, but you know what? Disney World is not alone. Universal is just as expensive, if not more. Um, quite frankly, I don't believe Universal can hold a candlestick to Disney in terms of entertainment. Uh, they try their best. But I think they're looking for a different audience than the audience that goes to Walt Disney World.
Right, right, and where they have that overlap, you know, do we think Disney how much do we think Disney is gonna fight to keep those days that they may lose from those guests that overlap
Yeah.
both parks?
I think they're hoping the guests that would be attracted to Universal are going to want to ride Tron and Guardians of the Galaxies.
Do you think that, 2 new, headliner attractions like that are enough to sway guests from spending that extra day at a whole new park with a whole new set of intellectual properties that's really like you said earlier, it's targeting a specific set of folks
Mhm.
that
No.
like the video game experience, that like those characters, and a lot of energy, excitement. So do we think they're going to try or not?
But I think with how Disney is not putting the other, updates totally off the table,
Hmm.
they're gonna be bringing them in. I think this is gonna, like we discussed on our other, um, another show that we did about should they open up another park or should they just
Mhm.
include and incorporate? And I think that's why they decided to start continuing to incorporate all those other rides that they talked about in Epcot now in the events so that they will be able to continue to bring in the guests and not lose them to the fifth park at Universal, or not the fifth park, but the new park at
Yeah,
Universal.
well, I'm going to make this statement about that. I'm going to preserve the right to change my mind at any moment because, I honestly, I don't always think things through from A to Z. I look at what's on the surface and react to what's on the surface. But in this case with Disney, I don't think they're actually going to care if those two new attractions are going to be enough to keep the people that would spend that extra day at Universal on Disney. When I say on Disney property, I mean in Disney parks. If they're staying and spending their money at the resorts, they'll be thrilled with that. But that doesn't necessarily mean they want to keep all those guests in the park because they're doing very well at the parks right now. That could change. And I think that's the only way I constantly revise my thinking on a fifth park. Do I think we'll see a fifth park? Yes, eventually. But I think it might be years down the road. I just don't know. I think the quickest way for Disney to have to do a fifth park is if they were bursting at the seams in attendance in the other four parks, and the only way they can alleviate that attendance is by opening up a fifth park, and that takes years to build.
Yeah, and I have some thoughts I'll share a little bit later about another kind of concept for that fifth park. But
Mhm.
to your point about Tron opening and Guardians of the Galaxy opening, I think it does something to certainly have a draw to dissuade guests from leaving and going to a Universal. But I also think it's more immediate in that it helps them with their distribution of guests across the park. So there's, another big attraction that's going to take people. So
Mhm.
in Epcot, Guardians of the Galaxy can take some of the pressure off of Frozen Ever After or Soarin' or Test Track, all of the other attractions within Epcot. And the same thing goes for Tron. Tron is going to
Mhm.
take some of the traffic away from Space Mountain and the other big attractions within Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Seven
it will.
Dwarfs Mine Train. Wouldn't it be interesting to see finally Seven Dwarfs Mine Train to not be this, you know, hard to get, um, hard
Yeah,
to get to the front of the line,
yeah.
because the line's so long.
Well, do you remember when Soarin' opened and it was Mission Space? The lines for those attractions were insane. But in time, as other attractions open up, the lines for those attractions, while still long at times, well, maybe not Mission Space, but Soarin', while long, and yes, they do have three theaters now for Soarin'. But I think in time, people have seen it enough. When I say people have seen enough, I'm not talking about the one timers that go to Disney and that's it. People that are repeat visitors to Disney World have seen it enough, so they're spending their time elsewhere. They're not rushing back to do something they've done several
Right,
times.
right. And Guardians of the Galaxy was is going to be more popular than Ellen's Energy Adventure was. Even though
Yes.
Ellen's Energy
Yep.
Adventure could swallow a lot of guests,
Mhm.
it wasn't, there people weren't beating down the door to get there.
Right. It was a good nap. You know what? I love that attraction. Love the attraction, but the last few years that I had gone on it, no matter how hard I tried, I was out like a light.
Well, it's a long attraction and it's dark
Yeah.
and it's comfortable, at least because
Yes.
it's cool.
And empty most of the time. And that's another reason why it's not there anymore because it's like the same people that were complaining about Maelstrom. How could you get rid of it? Because it was empty all the time. And look what Frozen has done. Frozen, which is basically the same attraction, with the added characters from Frozen is a phenomenal hit. And there's
Yes.
no real difference between that and Maelstrom, or no significant difference, I should say, other than the character changes. And you know what?
And the theming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? The theming is
I mean, I
you're
know the
still going
track is the
through.
same, but,
Well, it's a little
You know,
longer. The
the
track's a little
theming is
longer.
still. Yes, they updated to a Frozen theming, but it's still basically the same kind of attraction.
well, you don't have the
It's
video
still,
either.
it's still a Nordic attraction.
Well, and the music
And the
is a
music,
big
right?
difference
Mhm.
for people. It's
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
but it was enough to get people coming back and back and back again.
And to get kids, to satisfy kids in Epcot, which
Yep.
Mhm.
was not an easy thing to do until Disney
Yeah.
started paying attention to them with more than just KidCot stops.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
I know one other thing, that's not very popular at Universal, and that people have told me is that they enjoy the food better at Disney than they do at Universal.
yeah, but you know what? I don't think that's gonna stop people from going to Epic Universe when it opens. I think the theme park itself will be the draw.
Well,
You
right,
know,
especially the target audience.
yeah, yeah. I don't think they're gonna care about the food as much as Disney fans care about the food at Disney World.
Well, in fact, the younger audience, the teens, they don't care about the fine dining,
No,
whether it's in Disney World or Universal, probably.
that's very true.
Like us, like
Yeah.
us cultured individuals.
Yeah, I do think Darlene and I had discussed this. I think it was after one of the shows we did. And Darlene had mentioned, I agree with her, they're going to fill in the gaps where they can in the parks first. Whether it's with a Mary Poppins attraction or something else.
Mm.
But I think we will see some things that we wouldn't expect. If you ask me right now, not what theme park, what attraction will close next to Disney World to make way for a new attraction? I have no clue. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I could tell you which ones I don't like, but that's a personal opinion. It's not what I think Disney's thinking.
Mm.
But I think that's going to happen. I think Disney will see the numbers in certain attractions and what it's doing for the crowds and decide, you know what, we can do something here that will eat more people up.
Right. Well, they have to look at that. So, I mean, they've already
Mhm.
said that they're looking to better distribute people across the park. They've already said they're looking to decrease lines. And
Yeah.
if so, the attractions you look at are the ones that have, very limited throughput for the capacity that they have. So if you're not getting a lot of guests through the attraction, but the
Mhm.
attraction can handle a lot more, well, then that attraction is not doing a good job to help distribute the crowds and cut down on the line waits.
Yeah. One attraction I can think of, and I'll be quite honest, I do not know if it's getting the crowds that it needs um, in the theater, but the Raiders attraction. I love that attraction, but to me, it seems so outdated, and it's time for an update. And if they updated with something that is kid friendly, family friendly, I think they would draw huge crowds.
Yeah. Well, it it would be a big deal to change it from a theater to something else. So it's
Well, no, I would leave it as a theater. Just put a different.
right, but what kind of show,
Right.
right?
I have no idea what kind of show
Well,
they would
have
put
what
on.
have you seen what the crowds look like since they've opened that
No,
back up?
that's why I said I have no idea if they're packing it in, filling up the theater. I have no idea.
Yeah, I didn't even go near it when I was there the last time.
Yeah,
I just went, into Batu.
yeah.
I haven't seen the Raiders show in over 15 years.
I think the last time I saw it, it was pre pandemic.
Mhm.
Boy, I think it was 2018, maybe. Yeah, it was 20. It wasn't 2019. It was 2018, I think.
Mm.
And if it wasn't 2018, then it was 2016. So it's been a
Well,
while.
that attraction's been there for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or I'm sorry, that show has been there for 30 years now.
And I can't say how many times I've seen it several times over the years, and
Mhm.
you know what? I do love the attraction, but I think if they update it with something else that could guarantee sellouts for each performance.
I'm
Now
just trying
something
to think what we could put in there.
yeah, I have no idea. My brain's not working well today. Um, something, I thought of instead of a fifth park, why not put like some type of Disney museum there where you're still charging an admission, maybe a smaller admission, that people coming to Walt Disney World might say, you know what? I'm going to take time away from the parks today because I think this will be more relaxing and go to the museum.
What, like Walt's Family Museum? Or
Well, would have maybe an Imagineer museum pay tribute to the Imagineers by having exhibits of their works and displays of some of the things they've done, and maybe a workshop for you know guests to participate in. Just the
well,
thought.
they let you see them when they had the studio in there, remember? When
They
we
used
walked
to.
through, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
miss
gone.
that. I
I
I
miss
miss
that.
that a lot.
I miss that too. But you know what? If they took what was the backlot tours and put that into a museum as a separate attraction by itself, when I say attraction, I don't mean attraction, but create a museum around it, you might get guests that would say, hey, you know what? Let's spend a day there or half a day there. And that would alleviate some of the parks without going through the tremendous expense it would take to build a fifth park.
Well, Disney has already opened a fifth park of sorts. And so hear me out. The Galactic Star Cruiser is a whole new venue, and it's a premium venue. We know how premium it is, and it's targeted specific individuals, but they can charge a premium price for it. And so, I guess what I'm getting at is, could Disney look at other ways to, through a smaller footprint, create premium experiences that will give guests other things to do in Walt Disney World and draw additional people to Walt Disney World while bringing in a higher revenue. So if there was some other premium experience, and I'm not saying that this is what they should do, but this is just an idea. What if they opened a new land, or a limited size park where they had old attractions, or they had, maybe a virtual experience for some of the old attractions, and they charged a
Mm.
premium for that. And so it's not like everybody's going to want to go there, but for the guests that go there, they charge a premium, and they can, or they can interact more with it or whatever. So maybe there's something in between the Halcyon and a traditional theme park where they could create something like that. Maybe they could create a, uh resort that has attached to it something akin to attractions, and only guests staying there can do those.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's where I think they're going to try a couple more of those boutique resorts. I don't think the Star Wars resort is going to be the last one we see like that, and I think that could very well happen in the future. I think anything that has a premium experience attached to it, Disney will entertain. I don't know if they'll do every single one, but I think they will entertain quite a few because you know what? It is a for-profit business,
Mhm.
as is Universal.
Yeah. And it can do something to pull some guests away from some of the lines in the at the attractions in the other
Mhm.
parks.
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
now the Halcyon doesn't do that for Batu, because the guests from the Halcyon are going over to Smuggler's Run and Rise of the Resistance,
Mhm.
Correct.
but they have the opportunity if they have something different that can pull people away from attraction. But even those guests, they might go on Smuggler's Run and Rise the Resistance. They don't have time really to do other attractions in Hollywood Studios that day.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know what the next boutique resort is going to be, but I think that's the direction they're going in. Oh, you know what? I forgot something in the news. I don't know all the details to this, but Ashley Eckstein is going to be appearing in, I think it's Disney Springs tomorrow.
Oh,
It was
really?
something I saw. Yeah, it was something I saw at the last minute. It was right before we came on to do the show. But she will be here in Florida tomorrow at somewhere on Disney World property. So you can Google it and find out where she's appearing. So
Wow.
I didn't mean to throw
Nice.
us off with that. I
Have,
don't know,
have either
something
of you met her
triggered.
before?
I'm sorry?
Have either of you met her before?
No.
Huh.
No, her
Ellie?
husband is a former Major League Baseball player. Yeah, for the California Angels, or now I guess it's the Anaheim Angels.
I never attended the Star Wars weekends when Hollywood Studios used to have them, and they had the different actors playing Star Wars characters.
Yeah,
Never lived close enough until recently,
right.
and then
Yeah,
we got
absolutely. Yep.
kapooed.
And
Same here.
Star Wars weekends are gone now.
Yep.
Yes, they
So
are.
we used to have soap weekends. Not only are the soaps gone, so are the soap star weekends.
The
Yeah.
soaps aren't gone. They're still on. Not as many, but they're still.
Yeah, well, yeah, but right. A lot of them are no longer viable weekly or daily shows. But it's crazy how the world, when I say the world, technologically has changed in the last 10 years, let alone the last 20 years, and how Disney's always been at the forefront of these changes. Um, so anyway, do you think it will have a real effect, Epic Universe, or do you think it'll be like, yeah, it's going to take some guests away, but we won't even notice it in the parks at Walt Disney World?
That's what I think. I don't think we're really gonna notice
Yeah,
much. If anything, we'll see maybe like a small lull when it first opens. It'll be like it is in between the holidays now, or in between the different festivals or run weekends where we get that like 1 or 2 week lull,
yeah,
but I still have a feeling people are gonna come down to do both.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think if people are coming down and they want to see Universal, they're going to see Universal. If they
Mhm.
want to see just Disney World, they'll see just Disney World. And if they want to do both, they will.
Yeah, I think it's going to have some impact. I don't know to what degree. Certainly, when Universal started opening the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, it had an impact, and I think so. Universal is using established intellectual property. It's
Mhm.
this a page right out of Disney's playbook, and so here's the other. This is another way that I think that this has an impact to Disney, and it's not just park attendance, but it's cultivating that connection to the brand and the connection to that intellectual property. So Universal can strengthen their set of intellectual properties,
Mhm.
whether it's Nintendo or Harry Potter or any of the other their diverse properties. So I think it's also helping them to strengthen their brand, and uh, they've got a decent wealth of properties which they can use and expand over time.
Yep.
So I think that's something else that Disney would be looking at is they're trying to leverage their IP, and if Universals get a little bit stronger, you know they can only go so far, but I think Disney wants to continue to cultivate theirs too, which I
Mhm.
think is impetus for them adjusting and changing and adding experiences with more and more of their IP.
Yeah. Um, One thing I think could hurt Disney, maybe not initially, but in time, is the merchandise.
That too.
If Epic Universe or Universal becomes more of a brand on its own. And you know what? I always think it's going to be like the dirty stepsister to Disney, where it'll never quite get on the same level as Disney, no matter how hard they try. But you know what? I've been wrong about things, and things have changed greatly. Who knows what the future will bring? I just don't know. But that could be another way Disney gets hurt is merchandise.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, and we know they don't like that.
No, they don't.
No.
But that could certainly spur them, with new ideas for their merchandise, for their
Mhm.
properties, their
Yep.
characters.
Now, is this discussion a little bit ahead of where it should be in the scheme of things? Yes.
Probably, yes, but we are the first ones to discuss it.
Right. But it's something that, you know what? It's 2025 will be here before you know it.
Hmm.
And that park will be a reality before you know it. And Disney's going to have to start taking it, and I'm sure they're already doing it, but taking a closer look at what's coming, not only there, but here at Disney World.
Right. It's going to be one more step. I think it is one more step to a triggering point for an ultimate fifth park.
Right.
Mhm. And you know what? Competition for Disney is good. Even
Oh
It
if
yeah,
is. It is. Yes.
even if you look at the competition, you say, you know what? They're not in the same league as Disney. It's still good because with no competition, you may not get the changes that you
Hmm.
want. When I say changes, I mean different shows, different attractions, um, different guest experiences.
Hmm.
Then, I think this is going to spur Disney to do some of that, maybe not all of it.
well, you talked about Universal, being on par with Disney World, and you don't see that happening. Well, you don't see that happening so long as Disney continues to grow and change and come up with new
Right.
ideas. So, if Disney ever just stood still, which
It could.
some guests, say, well, I don't want this to change and I don't want that to change. If Disney ever did that and did not change at all, that's when Universal would blow past them.
And you know what? That could,
Very true.
while I don't see that happening, it could happen. We don't know.
Hmm.
What happens if the board of directors say, you know what? We've put enough money into the parks. We're done. For the next 5 years, we don't want to do anything. We'll upkeep what we have, and that's it. Then Universal's got a good chance to catch up. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think there's a snowball's chance, why for that to happen.
Well, and the thing is that Disney does take very good care of their rides and stuff.
Mhm.
And I've only been to Universal once since I've moved down here. And before that I was only there once. So, I don't go very often, but I know that they've had issues from what I understand because I had friends that did Halloween Horror Nights and Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween parties. That was one of their times that they came down, stayed at the Grand Floridian, and they would tell me, oh, well, this ride was down and that, but then, we went over to
All right. Well,
Disney and
hold on,
their
Darlene. Let
roads
me
were
stop you for a second.
great.
Let's be fair. Disney has had rides breaking down
They
very
have.
recently.
They
Now, keep
have.
in mind that Disney World is 50 years old.
Right. But these were like brand new rides that were going down.
Mhm.
So there's a big difference. So I've heard the
Mhm.
both best of both worlds. Disney does have to make sure that all of their technology, all of their electronics, all of their tracks and everything are all top
Mhm.
notch. And it's hard. It's hard work to plan all that stuff.
Yeah. You know what? In many ways, Disney World is like mouse fan travel. Just simply the best.
Are you gonna go right into your spiel?
No, I did it already.
Yes, he did.
Oh.
Yeah, where were you?
She was. Well, we know where she was.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Ah.
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot can happen between now and 2025. Uh, on both sides,
Mhm.
Universal or and Disney World. I think it's going to be a win-win situation for guests. We're Disney fans and Universal fans. I think Universal fans will be treated to things that they've longed for and things that they never imagined they could have. And I think the same thing could be said about Disney World fans. I think Disney will maybe subtly react to what's going on, but when they subtly react, the end result is always like an atomic bomb because they always do things so well.
So let me ask you this, Stuart,
Mhm.
John, give me a year that you think Disney would say they would if they announced having a 5th park. What year do we think that would be
Oh boy,
built
The
by?
announcement, oh, but the
the
build,
announcement that they're building it.
No, that it would be okay, the announcement that they're gonna build it and then the announcement of when it would open. Because 'Cause we're in 2022 and Epic is supposed to open in 2025, so that's 3 years to build the whole park.
at least the first iteration of it.
Phase, right.
And we've seen, when you build Animal Kingdom, you build Hollywood Studios, they're not full day parks.
Right.
And you know, when Universal themselves has created new parks, they aren't full day parks.
So let's just to do a guesstimate for me.
Ooh, John, you can go first.
Uh,
I'm thinking about this.
yeah, well, my my this is just a wild sense, and it's just throwing something in it, who knows if it would ever stick to the wall. My sense with where we are now, and things, hopefully getting more back to normal, waiting to see what happens with Epic Universe, and the changing and growing of the guest base in Central Florida. My wild thought is they announce something in 5 years and then have it open 8 years from now.
And so mine is a little different. Mine would have been we're in 2022. Mine would be that they make the announcement in 2028 with it already in development and opening in 2030.
Well, 8 years is 2030.
Well, I'm sorry, 2032. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. So we're not too far off.
So announcing it in 2030 and already under development, but nobody
Okay.
knows about it.
Okay.
And then boom, 2 years later, it's going to open.
Okay. So a little bit beyond.
That would be just a wild guess.
Yeah.
Do I
Well, that's
think?
all mine was.
Yeah.
Arlene?
Mine is at the next not this D23, but the next D23, they would start talks that they were planning on opening it,
Ooh.
and I'm thinking that they're gonna open it in about 2030. I was thinking.
Well, 2030 was when mine
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
yeah.
So, what do you think would be the root cause to spur Disney to open a fifth park? The number one reason that they would do it,
Drop in attendance.
John?
My number one is more revenue.
Yeah,
More
I was going to say
more guests,
profitability.
more
Yep.
revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're going to try to weed out the guests in the parks by raising the prices and making sure Genie Plus and the paper rides work better than they are right now.
Yeah.
Um,
But they're gonna run out of ways to squeeze significant revenue out of the guests.
mhm.
Over the next, there's only so much you can do. And they've certainly taken steps with introducing Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, but to get those bigger bumps, that's where I think that they need it.
Yeah, they've got to recover from what they lost
Yeah,
over the last 2 years. Not
yeah,
not so much the last 6 months. Um, Once they can recover from that, and if their other businesses are showing profitability, I think it'll become a more serious discussion on their end. But until that, because they have to have the money to build the parks.
mhm.
Mhm.
ultimately the guests are going to pay for it one way or another. However, they're not going to say, okay, we're raising ticket prices $100 a day because they're building another park. They're not going to do that. But we are going to
We
see
sure
increases.
hope not.
But we will see increases.
That's all we've been seeing.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not going to be just for upkeep. And the new attractions going into the other parks, they're going to have to pay for it somehow. Where's that
Yeah.
money coming from? One of the directors aren't going to say, okay, yeah, we're ready to shell out millions more just so you can build a fifth park. That's not going to happen. Yeah, who knows? I don't know enough about that end of the business to know what's going to be the trigger for it, but we'll see.
Well, our side of the business is how much money can we afford to spend on Disney, and in what ways are we going to choose to do it
Yep.
between the parks and the cruise line, or merchandise or food or other things that they choose to offer.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay. I think that's going to wrap it up for us here. Well, John, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I do
Okay.
not have anything else.
Darlene?
No, I think I'm good.
And I have nothing else to add. So we're going to mosey on out of here now. We will be back next week we're going to go back to our regular schedule next week with our news show earlier in the week and our regular show later in the week. So until then, everybody, please be safe. Bye bye.
And I just realized that when we were talking about building attractions or lands or other parks, that we didn't say anything about building something related to Encanto. But then again, we don't talk about Bruno. So don't stop talking about Disney, and don't stop tuning in. See you next week.
Well, have a very happy St. Patrick's Day. And next week I will be on the news show, but I will not be on the family show that we're doing right now of talking about our favorite topics. So you have a magical night and stay safe.